So coming up next, we are going to be being joined by my next guest, which is Danny Moore, Strategic Account Director for Novartis, with the area of focus on innovative medicines, launch strategic partnerships and operational delivery. So joining me in the studio is Danny Moore. Danny, hello, how are you?
Doing really well, thank you. Yeah, nice to see you, Sam.
And you, I'll say it's good to have you in. Talk to us about Novartis. Tell me a little bit about you, what Novartis do.
Yeah, well, Novartis is one of the partners with Confed this year. We regularly partner with Confed, but we're an innovative medicines company. But really, in terms of why we're here, it's about partnership and collaboration and thinking about what we can do to sort of bring that to life.
And how's it been so far? How's your experience been this year?
It's been fantastic. I think it's been described as the most optimistic Confed I've been to for years, really. I think there's a real sense of optimism in the air, and I think there's a lot of talk about what can we do to sort of collaborate. We can't do things together. We've got to do things together was what Amanda Pritchard said, and I think that's been echoed in most of the sessions I've seen. Seen a lot of innovation, a lot of work with data, a lot about leadership, some big themes, but I think optimism and a real sort of sense of the future it's been fantastic.
Why do you think it is? Why do you think this year everyone's so optimistic and you're sort of looking towards the future? Because a lot of people have mentioned optimism. You know, that has been a buzzword in the studio here. But what do you think it is that's really changed the opinion?
I'm not so sure. I think at some point we kind of, because with the general election coming up, there's certain specifics people can't talk about, and sort of rightly so. But I think what that's led to is a lot of focus on some of the great work that's happening, as well as some of the problems. But even when people have been addressing the problems, I think there's been this sort of collegiate spirit. People have been looking at it and say, we know there's a lot of work to do, but also we know there's a lot of partners out there. We know there's a lot of collaboration can happen within the NHS as well as externally, and how do we sort of tackle the problem? So I think that has almost cut through pretty much most sessions I've been to.
Have you got into a lot of the
I've managed to, yeah. I've managed to, and just speaking of the leadership piece, it was really kind of interesting, and I think really a great move to hear Amanda Pritchard talking about that sort of strength of leadership and management, and more support and wrap around that, where great clinicians, many are absolutely unbelievably great leaders and managers, but also what's the framework, what will they do moving forwards, and how do they bolster it? So to that end, there's been a couple of fantastic speakers I've seen. Obviously, Clive Woodward speaks for himself. He was amazing.
I haven't seen his session. How was it? Tell me about that.
It was unbelievable. He focused on, obviously, he spoke about his background and success in sport, but he also talked about his background in business and how he'd made the links. And he probably had sort of two sides to the coin. He was thinking about what is it that makes us successful in what we're doing, as in the sort of skills, the task, confidential stuff for the rugby team, for example. But then the rest of it was really applicable to any team. So it's team standards, and they talk about winning behaviours with the Olympic team, and then teamship as a concept for the England rugby team. Both the same thing, called something different. But he was really talking about how do you get a set of norms and standards within a team, the team buy into, they're involved in, and they develop. And you use that to really create that ethos of unity, we're in it together, and how to perform. So something simple like being on time, so 10 minutes to every meeting. They called it Lombardi time, which was the player's definition of what on time meant.
Okay.
So Clive Woodward was saying, I'm not going to set what that means to me or what it means to you. What does it mean to them? They'd have a series of meetings, but they'd align on it. But once everybody aligned, it was 10 minutes early.
Okay.
And they called it Lombardi time. So I kind of, not to give away sort of things from Sir Clive's book, but that spirit just meant that everybody was super clear what they needed to do, what the standards were, what the team signed up to. And he was talking about the application of that into teams in around the NHS, and just a simple concept, but it was fantastic.
Do you think that's something you're going to take away, adopt, implement that kind of idea or ethos?
Absolutely. I think we looked at that and thought, what are some of the core ideas that he's set, that whatever your walk of life, if you're involved in management and teams and leadership, how do you apply them? So he was fantastic. Amy Edmondson, I've got to say, was amazing. Professor Amy Edmondson, she's from Harvard. She ran a session, again with the director of NHS England Workforce. Sort of they collaborated, but it was brilliant.
Yeah, fantastic. And have you done a session today?
I have, yeah. I was involved in a session that went well, yeah.
Tell me about your session.
Well, it was an IQVIA hosted session looking at collaboration in CVD and looking at CVD outcomes. Fortunate enough to have Matt Kearney was there, Ryan, who's from the PCN, as well as Laura from IQVIA. And we were on a panel examining, almost CVD can seem a bit too big problem to solve. And Matt Kearney's work, I'd advocate anybody has a look at UCLP, Size the Prize, Google it. Yeah, so University College London partners. Size the Prize work, Matt looks at CVD and looks at kind of all the different elements that make up cardiovascular disease, different risk, different sort of stratospheres of risk, and pulls it together to say kind of this is how many people we need to look at. And I guess as a panel we sort of broke that down a bit to say that can be quite forbidding and quite a big number. So kind of with that sense of optimism, what can people do about it? So each panel member was sharing a project they've been involved in to try and break that down and make impact for patients. And yeah, it was really good. We had a lot of engagement from the audience.
Fantastic. And as I say, we have covered a sort of lot of different diverse subjects. We've discussed innovation and the future. If you've got somebody considering a career in the NHS, dipping their toe in, if you like, what do you say to someone right at the start of their journey? To
the NHS or pharma, so I can probably speak more to pharma, but certainly for the NHS as well, I think it's really obvious that you are in a team, and that it's a career that makes an absolute impact on people's lives. So we've heard some of the patient stories loud and clear here. I think Amanda Pritchard was keen to point out some of the challenges the NHS has faced and some of the mistakes, but also that sense of the future direction and the excellence that's there. So I think if you're a young person, you're thinking about a career in science or a career in the NHS or around patients, then absolutely it's a great thing to be involved in if you want to make an impact on people, create change, and make a difference.
Cool. And overall, final thoughts on the show this year?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of key themes. One of which for me is around AI and tech. I think that's kind of been very interesting, the way that can make an impact. So I've seen some examples of projects that have taken place, and it's starting to really become real and make a big impact. So that struck me. And then the other piece we touched on, which was leadership and management from Amanda at the front, and I think how that filters down, I think it's going to be really exciting.
Brilliant. I'll say I really appreciate you coming in and giving us your insight and experience of the show. So thank you very much for talking to us.
Thanks, Simon.